We are live, and I wanted to welcome everybody to today's webinar. A lot of you are probably returning from the past webinars, and for all the new listeners, just wanted to give some information on the webinar series that we're doing. My name is Ari Zuckerman, Vice President at Centercourt Sports Academy. For all the new listeners, our goal for the Centercourt webinar series is to keep valuable information flowing to the tennis and to the local community, and to keep all of you engaged in with creative ideas throughout the current challenging times that we're all dealing with. These topics include practice games to do on your own, drills to be included in home training for all levels, how to self-educate, train, and become a better player while being at home. Our very special guest today is Jorge Capestany. Jorge is the founder of the Capestany Tennis Inc., which websites for tennis players and coaches as well. His coach's website, which I'll do as well, it's www.tennisdrills.tv, is a subscription-based site that has more than 1,000 videos and tennis drills and tips that can be viewed online, as well as printed off in diagram form. He also has a player's website, which is his full name. I'll spell that: Jorge, JorgeCapestany.com. I'm going to send that as well to the chat. Which features free video lessons for players of all levels. Jorge has earned the distinction of Master Professional with the USPTA and International Master Professional with the PPR. Many of you know Conrad Singh as well, but I wanted to introduce him as well. Coach Conrad is the COO, Director of Coaching, and Head of Performance at Centercourt Sports Academy. We're gonna have a chat, and you guys can certainly throw questions in as they come up. We want to keep this certainly an open discussion. Jorge has a great presentation that he's going to share as well, and we're going to begin with Conrad here with some opening points.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. It's been really exciting to be involved in the Centercourt webinars and the 360 series, which we'll talk more about. Very proud today to introduce a good mate, Jorge Capestany, who I've been privileged to know for 13, 14 years now. We first met at the Worldwide Symposium back in 2007, I believe. In that time, we've been able to connect, collaborate, work together at various conferences around the world. I believe we've been to the ITF World Conference in Mexico, Australian Open, possibly Wimbledon one time. But Jorge, amazing to have you on.
Thank you.
The reason why we were so keen to try to lock you down is because you are really the pioneer in my eyes. I mean, you might know more facts than that in terms of online drills. I remember when you were first talking about it way back when, most people were nowhere near where you're at, and obviously in today's rough conditions, this is the platform. So you were obviously ahead of your time, and we're really excited to have you today. What do you think about that, and what it is that you can offer to our viewers?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys let me get to with you and all your members, and these are obviously some pretty unique times. I can already see someone in the chat looking for the websites. I put a couple in there. Before we'll talk more about the websites, don't anybody go and buy anything just yet, because I'm going to give people free access at the end. So I don't want you to go on Tennis Drills and sign up just yet. But there is a lot of content I have, and when right now, so lucky for me, I do have about 300 on JorgeCapestany.com. I probably got 300 instructional videos. Those are all free. And then on my Tennis Drills website, there's probably 2,000. That's a subscription base. That's mostly for coaches and a little bit for players. But I thought what we do today is I'm going to share, what I'm known for is drills. I think the drills website gets me, going all over the world speaking on drills. If you're a tennis coach, a new drill is really, kind of exciting. So I created this little, basically a PowerPoint that has some videos. And I just want to kind of go through it because I think everybody, I am also, just a little bit about me, I'm a club manager. I run a couple online businesses. I've been a teaching pro for, close to 40 years. I tallied up all the hours I've taught online. There are about 63,000 hours I've taught on the court, not online, on the court. That's probably why my knees don't work too good. So I've worn several hats, from rookie tennis pro to a high performance coach to a club manager to a director of tennis and entrepreneur. So the one thing I really like a lot is I love video, because I think I can help so many more people. If I teach a group of 6 people, that's 6 people I can help. But if I make a video and go on the internet, now I can help 6,000 people or more. So I think without further ado, I'm just going to share my screen and start going through some of this, because I don't want you just to listen to me. So let's see if I can do this properly. You should be able to see my screen now. This first, so this is a PowerPoint, but it's going to have some video in it. So if you're not able to see it or something, just kind of speak up, Ari or Conrad. But today's little presentation is games you can do on your own. And I base these on the 5 play situations. And if you're wondering what the 5 play situations are, here's what they are. I don't really invent this. This is just fact. So as a tennis player, at any given moment you're only going to be doing one of these 5 things. And that's it, nothing else. You'll either be serving, or you'll be returning, or you'll be playing from the baseline, or playing from the net. And by the way, transition, I include that, transition net. Or the other guy's up, in which case you're hitting passing shots and blobs. And if you think about it, there is no other thing you'll do. You're always doing at least one of those things, right? So for me, that makes it easy to kind of take my teaching system and my drills and kind of plan them around that. So the first play situation we'll talk about is the serving play situation. That's the first thing you might be doing. So the drill I want to talk to you about is called serve ground stroke. So now keep in mind, the idea here, I didn't want to pick a lot of, I'm not going to show you drills that take 6 people and getting together. We're not able to do that at this time. So I'm trying to show you things that you can do on your own. In Michigan, you can go play outside right now, even though we are in a shelter at home thing from our governor. We're still able to go out and play tennis and exercise. So if you play singles, I think this might be able to work. So you can see in the court here, we've just taken the deuce court and we divided it into 3 areas, and then the ad court, and we divided that into 3 areas. So these are what I call the ground targets. Ground is because we're measuring where they bounce on the ground inside the service box, right? These would be the first level of targets. I call them the most basic. So the game is called the serve number game. And this is really a clever game that you can try. So this is a video, and I'm going to mute it so we can, but I'm going to just start the video right here, and I can jump through for it. So basically what I'm doing, I'm explaining right here. You can see that we got the targets, right? So when you play this game, you can play, I recommend you play several. You start out, and your first target area is number 1. So that's my wife right there serving. And she hits it. So she gets to now move to area 2. And she has to aim at that area. See, there she missed. So she's still aiming at 2. And by the way, she's used up 2 serves so far. Missed again. Now she's on 3 serves so far. She's still aiming here. Got it. So now she gets to move on. She's got 4. Her next target will be right here. And if she goes for it and she nails it. So you get the idea. I'm going to jump forward, and you can see that you're basically going to work yourself all the way across. And the goal here, guys, the goal is to see in this drill how many times, or the way you score it is you have to hit them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have to hit them in order. And you're trying to do it in as few as number of shots. So a perfect game, maybe Conrad, you could do this, is 6. You hit it, you hit it, you hit it, you hit it, and that's 6. Now that's not typical. An average game is somewhere around 12 to 15. And if you're a pretty good player, like 4-0 and up, you can maybe keep that under 10. So obviously that game is very much a accuracy game, but it's a clever little way to play. Now, when it comes to serving, I'm going to show you a couple, because I believe that serving is probably, other than the return, the most under-practiced area. So this game here is called actually the dice returner game. We call it dice server. So you'll see I have a thing here. I'll play the video and I'll walk. Oh, let me mute that. So what's going to happen here, this is homework. You can do this without another person, right? And if you don't have a physical dice, you can get a free dice game on your phone for free. You see, it just rolled a 5. Okay, so Marty is playing against herself. She rolled a 5, so now she's got to try to hit it to area 5. Okay, And the way you play this game with yourself or a buddy is you keep score, basically you versus the dice. So right now, Marty's going to play an entire set this way. The score is love, love. Marty comes up, she serves, and she's serving to 5. If she hits it, well, she's nervous on the toss, it looks like. She goes here, she swings, and she hit it, right? So right now, Marty is ahead 15 to love. And then we roll the dice again. This time the dice comes up with a 2. All right, so her next point, she's going to serve to 2, and she's just going to continue this little sequence. Oh, she missed it. So now the game is 15 all. And the next, she'll keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And the whole idea behind this game, guys, is accuracy, but it's also a clever way to practice your serve without being bored to death. I've had a lot of pretty good juniors in my coaching career, and one of the things I've always know they struggle with is serving practice. They got to do it, but it's so boring, serving into an empty box without targets and stuff. So that's a clever little game that you can play, I think, on your own or with a buddy. And then this next one here is, I call it serve target. So if you look at my screen right now, you can see that now I have some targets across the baseline. Initially, before, I had targets up here. This was 1, this was 2, this was 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Those were the ground targets. These are a more advanced targeting system. I call it the exit targets. So that's because that's where they exit the court. So here's how you can think of this. Number 1, target 1, just backs up. It's right in front of each other. 2, right behind is 2. 3 right here is right behind 3. So these targets all stay basically in the same. But now we have to add the alleys. Okay, 7 and 8, and then over here 0, 1, and out there. So what's going to happen here is you're going to serve, and now you're going to actually bring your attention to the baseline. And you'll notice I have my little guy here. And this is super important takeaway. If the ball exits through 0 or through 2, that means this guy, my little net guy here, that's probably the easiest thing that he can hope for. It's basically just he turns and he hits. So those are actually in red because they're danger areas. You don't really want to have a serve. If I serve out wide and it just goes right through the alley, exits through here, that is just a simple rocking forehand that guy can hit and maybe hit it down my throat. Here's what it would look like on the other side. This is about where the person would stand. 5 and 7 would be the danger areas. Okay, so there's a couple ways to play this. We call this, the audit. So let me just kind of show you the game, and I'll try to get my mute here. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to have Marty. This is me talking to Marty, and I have my target set up. And basically, we're just taking an audit. I'm having her serve, and maybe for the first time in her life, she's going to be focusing on where the ball exits back here. So she just serves, or I just served, and went through 1. So that would have been a body serve. Here I serve, and it went through 1 again. So this is very important, and very few players actually think about this. They might think about targets on the ground, but they're not really thinking about the targets back here. And this is the more important. These exit targets are more important because that is where the ball gets hit. That's the reality for your opponent. So there Marty served, and it crossed 2. So if I was standing here, that would probably be a pretty easy shot for me. Remember, 0 and 2, 5 and 7 are problem areas. So we're just doing an audit. I don't want you to have her grade. I'm just having her hit. This is what I recommend for you. Just go ahead and hit your serves. And for a good 5 minutes, just kind of take notice, take a little audit, and where do your shots go? Where do they exit? So you can kind of at least, by the way, I call this level 3 of tennis IQ because you're now thinking about the far side of the court. And here we actually, you can see I put an actual person over here. You see how she's standing mostly behind 1. And now as I serve, yeah. So here you're seeing me light up those trouble targets. So this would be step 2 of this drill. You do it without a person there. And then step 2, now you put a person there and you just start to see, you start paying attention. What are my serves actually doing? What are they yielding for my opponent? So the number 1 thing I would have you take away from this game here is it doesn't really matter if you serve hard, if you serve in, if it's got spin. All that really matters on any shot in tennis is the effect it had on the opponent. So if you hit it really hard and it goes right into someone's strike zone and they love pace, that's not necessarily a good serve. That's a hard hit serve, but it's not a good serve in my opinion. So this is just another clever game. We're using the dice still. We're using these little targets. So we can move past right here. I put it on the other side. So that's the idea there. So those, let me unshare my screen here for a second. So that was basically the survey, right? There's 3 or 4 little games that you can do there. I will say this, as a coach who's been trying to help people with their serves for decades, I learned to just admit to people that serving on your own can be boring. It is. I mean, there's not a lot of people, especially when they're serving into a box and there's no scoring and there's no targeting. It's hard. I remember as a young player, my coach challenged me to do that. And I said, yeah, I want to be good. I'll do it. And I went out and he gave me an assignment for a summer to hit 200 serves a day. I didn't get through 3 days before I was like, I can't do it. This is it's so boring. I'm freaking out. So that was play situation number 1. We're talking about serving. So now let's go to play situation number 2, which is returning. Okay, that's the next thing that you could be doing if you're playing tennis. So I like to use targets, obviously. So now what you're seeing on the screen is the 6 return targets. So area 1 here is basically the box, you know, in the deuce court. And area 2 is behind it. Area 3 is back over here. Area 4 is the service box. Area 5 is this alley. And area 6 is this alley over here. Okay. Now, as a returner, let's say I'm over there returning. Ideally, I would want my player to be able to hit any one of these. Okay. If he's playing doubles, I would like for them to at least have a target. Most people, when they return, just as they're getting ready to return, if you were to stop them, say, stop, where are you going to hit your return? They can't answer. They literally say, like, over the net. You know, so they don't pick these. So just having targets in and of itself is a pretty helpful thing, and frankly, a lot of people don't do it. So when it comes to the return, there's another little drill I'll show you called dice returner. We're gonna stay with dice, the dice for a second. Let me mute this one, and I'll show you how this one works. So what's going to happen here is this is a game. So I just basically here showed you those targets again, right? Let me go here. So there they were. Now, this is a 2-person game. There's going to be a server and there's going to be a returner, and they're playing against each other. So what happens is the server, that's going to be us here. They're going to take the dice and you're going to roll it, and it's going to come up. You can see the dice just came up as a 5. Okay, so this is the server and the other side is the returner. They're going to play a set. So imagine you're playing your buddy a set, and the target right now, because the dice picked it, was 5. So the returner has to hit the 5. And then the next point, you know, they'll search to the ad and they'll keep going. So let's just watch, see if my wife can actually do it. My wife's the returner on the far side. 5 happens to be a little bit of a tough target. It's a smaller target. So let's just see. Server versus my wife, Marty, on the far side. There's the serve. Marty has to hit 5, and she misses. All right, so that means the server is up 15 love. Okay, now they go to the ad. Here comes the dice. This time the dice called 3. All right, so Marty has this whole box. Okay, this whole box to aim into. And this is Lark here. She's going to serve. And Marty's going to play. So I understand that you guys had Craig O'Shaughnessy on, right? And if you listen to Craig, you don't have to listen very long before he's always talking about the first 2 shots, serve and return. And that his basic life mission is to help people realize that you need a lot more serves and a lot more return practice. So there you see Marty made it. So it's 30 for the server. Marty finally gets a point, 30-15. And you just keep playing. You play, you play, you play. So let me just pause that video. So imagine you did this for a set with a friend, okay? I love to give this homework assignment. Anybody, I have a lot of juniors in particular that kind of lament to me, Coach Jorge, my serve, you know, I'm a choker, my serve's no good. And they just want a private lesson for me to fix them with my magic sauce. But at the end of the day, you got to get out and hit a bunch of serves. So this is a great homework assignment. You can play a set this way. And there's really 2 people getting a workout. This would be the server, that would be, and the dice would be telling you where to serve at. Play a whole game. It's an unbelievable game. So that was my 1 return game that I would recommend. Now let's talk about baseline, because this is another play situation. It's probably the most common. one of the games I like to have you try and do is this game called, I call it the depth coding. But first we have to talk about the courts. So you see, I divided the court into 4. The service box here is cut in half, and the part closest to the net is 1. Deep in the service box is 2. Short no man's land right behind here is 3. Way back in half court here, and the way back is number 4. So that's just 1, 2, 3, 4. Simple enough game. All right. But if you ask most players, adult or junior, where do your shots land? Do you hit deep? They have no clue. They kind of, yeah, I think I hit deep, you know, and they think that most of their shots land in 3 and 4, and they really don't. So this game that I recommend, I'm going to show you, it's called depth coding. Very, very clever game. Probably one of my favorite games. So remember, way up here is 1, here's 2, this whole area is 3, and this is 4. So I'm going to let this go, and you're going to see what happens. Watch the screen light up. So that landed in 2. You can see the number there, 2. And this person, that one landed in out. It was out of bounds. Okay, and you're just going to rally back and forth. So the goal here when you rally with your buddy is you're calling it out loud. So if I was Marty on the near side, I would be saying right now, 4. And then she hits it back. The other girl calls. And then Marty says 3. Because you want to say it loud so the other person knows. 2. And calling it back and forth like that gives you 3. An idea of just how deep you hit or not. And let me tell you something, almost every single time we do this drill, people are surprised. They're surprised at how short they actually hit. They think they hit a lot in 3 and 4, and the most common areas are really, let me just keep this going, are 2 and 3. And so you say, is it a good thing to hit in 2? Well, probably not so much, all right? So that's called the depth coding game, and it's very, very helpful. Now, another thing when it comes to ground stroking, we should talk about strike zones. Again, all these things we're doing, that last game had to do with my side of the court, right? I'm calling it on my side. But this, by the way, is my wife. And really, I like to use strike zone analogy as just there's 4 strike zones. Now, some coaches like 3. It doesn't really matter. We just got to give it some kind of number. So to me, anytime you're making contact below your knees, that's strike zone 1. It's pretty low. Down here, you're probably slicing. 2 is between your hips and your knees, okay? Strike zone 3 is right here by your torso, and strike zone 4 is right here above your shoulders, okay? So we all know, like, if Rafa is going to play Federer tomorrow, he's basically trying to get the ball up there on strike zone 4 on Fed. It's just the way he is, okay? So how can we do this and do something useful? So this game I'm going to show you is called strike zone coding. So we're going to go back on the court. This is my wife, Marty. I zoomed in on her. And this is how you would play this game. You're going to rally back and forth. Oh, let me mute it. And right when Marty hits, bam, you can see that is a 3, right? It's basically mostly in her torso. So I'm going to let this go for a while. But your job is to call it out. That would be a 4, a little bit higher. And as this drill goes on for a while, she'll get a clue. She'll start getting an idea like where most balls land. Again, this is another thing that if you ask people, where do you hit it? So right now, let's all in your own head try to call it. I would call that a 3. I'm not showing you on the screen anymore. That's probably a 3. Okay, this here is probably a 2 or a 3. So you can see it's pretty easy. That's probably a 3. And so why is this important? The reason, we're going to go back to here, the reason this is important because most players do their best when they receive the ball in 3 or 2, okay? So if you do this game here and you realize that you're sending constantly 2 and 3 to your opponents, this is huge. This is something you need to know. So here's the big aha moment. After I do those 2 drills, here's what happens. I ask the players after a few minutes, and this is a perfect thing. I encourage all of you to do it. You do that depth coding thing, and then say after 5 or 10 minutes, say what was the most common area that it landed. And I've done this drill in literally 6 different countries and 100 times. It's always 3. Most balls land in strike zone 3 or depth zone 3, right? So that's huge. And then when we do this other game and say, where did most of your strike zones go? Well, most strike zones are in 3. So this is the aha moment. I don't really tell people this I let them do the drills, and then they tell me. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Not one time has it ever not been 3 and not been 3. So here's the problem. This is right there. If you're going to write anything down, this is it. Most players that are playing tennis today are playing tennis the wrong way. They're hitting hard. They're hitting balls into 3, and they're giving their opponent the strike zone 3 over and over. They're sort of inadvertently becoming a ball machine for the other guy. So if you go around the planet and you're always saying, gosh, everybody plays great against me. I don't know why. This guy trees against me. It's very possible that the very way you play is the problem because you're not paying attention. You might be measuring the wrong thing, measuring how hard you're contacting and whether you're striking the ball well versus measuring whether that's a good shot or not. Okay, remember, what makes a good shot is the effect it has on the opponent, and that's all that matters. I don't care how pretty it is. It's all about the effect on the opponent. All right, so if we leave baseline, the next play situation is net play, okay? So I'm going to show you a game here. This is called Cuban Davis Cup. So if you don't know, I'm Cuban, and I invented it, so I get to call it Cuban Davis Cup. So there's a little story behind this game. When you play Cuban Davis Cup, you play it to the due side, and the next point you play to the ad. You just kind of go back and forth. So here, this is important. I work at a college, and a couple years ago, the men's team at this college had 5 freshmen that came in, and they were on the men's team. They all played 1 through 5. So that was good, right? We got a great recruiting class. The problem was in Michigan, you either in high school, you play singles or doubles, but not both. So as it turned out, everybody of these 5 kids played strictly singles in high school. And there's not many USTA tournaments for doubles, so basically they were doubles illiterate. And we play D3 tennis, which means every doubles counts for a point. That's 3 points, and it was a problem. So I was not coaching the team, but my friend was, and he was at his ends wits, like, I don't know what to do. We're always down in doubles. We can't catch a break. So I agreed just to watch. And here's what I learned after watching about 5 different pro sets, which take about an hour. And by the way, these players were 4-5 to 5-0. They're not beginners. They're pretty decent players. The average volleys in 1 hour, 24. That's about 1 volley every 2 minutes. In other words, it's not enough to move the dial. I know as a coach, I've often said the phrase, if you want to improve your net game, play more doubles. And now I have to reconsider it. They do play, when they play doubles, they hit more volleys, because if they play singles for an hour, they're probably going to hit 10 volleys. But it's not nearly enough, right? So I invented this game called Cuban Davis Cup, and it's best if I just show you, okay? So the math behind Cuban Davis Cup is after you play 1 hour of Cuban Davis Cup, the volleys on average are over 200. So imagine this game I'm going to show you. I'm just going to talk it through. So Marty goes cross court. She feeds and just rushes in. This is cross court to cross court only. So Marty's hit 1 volley. Now she's hit 2. Then she quickly goes to the other side. And this just repeats. Marty's going to attack for the whole set. Okay, now Marty's hit 3 volleys. Marty's hit 4 volleys. There's a 5th volley. It doesn't take long. There's a half volley. Okay, now they go. So what's happened here is we're getting rid of all the rituals, all the bouncing the ball. We're not serving. We're just taking the game and taking the volley. That's the featured shot we're working on. And we're cranking it through the roof. So I have this phrase I tattoo on everybody's brain that I can. And it's this: ball count matters. Ball count matters. If I'm working with you and you want to improve your volley, and I have you doing a drill that's going to give you 50 volleys in an hour, I'm sorry, but that's just going to take months and years to get a good volley. But if I can construct a game that's going to give you 250 volleys in an hour, and you do that for a month or 2, now you're moving the dial, okay? So that's the huge part of that game. So this is a similar game, Cuban Davis Cup. And the only difference that we're doing here, guys, is, let's mute that. We're trying to, I've added what I call an over-under rule. So when Marty comes in, she's going to help. That's Lark over there. Right when Marty hits his first volley, right there, she's going to yell out loud, over or under, meaning over the net or under the net. And what I find that when my juniors do this game, 70% of the time, the volleyer is yelling over. What that means is that the returner is hitting hard, high returns. It's not a smart return. or a smart passing shot. If you play a really good person, imagine playing Rafa in this game. You're not going to get too many overs. He's going to be dipping that ball at your feet constantly. So it's just a variation, but you're going to go ahead and only for the first shot, okay? And this will give the passing shot person on that side a real good feedback. We'll just watch one more point. So here comes Marty. On the first shot only, she yells out, that's about probably an over, and then you play it out, okay? And you'd be surprised, shockingly surprised, how many times the passing shot allows the volleyer to hit a volley above net level. It's really not the best type of passing shot. Okay, so one more little volley game. This one is kind of clever. Both players start on the service line, and they cannot close in. But what's going to happen is you play it out, and they're stuck there, right? Think of this as 2 points. There's a rally point, and they can't close in. As soon as this ball goes out of play, there's a second point, which I call the hustle point, and it's going to be a race to the net. So you can win the actual volley exchange. That's 1 point. The race to the net is another point. So let's watch. Watch the players are still going. They're sticking volleys. They're not able to close in. That's part of the rule. Okay, now they run to the net, and whoever wins that wins an extra point. So this is a great game for people that tend to volley on their heels. They tend to be tentative, always backing up. Because if you play at the net like that, this game is going to be a nightmare for you because you'll never win that race. Okay, boom, they go real quickly, and Lark wins that one. All right, so that's that game. Pretty clever. It's actually quite the workout. And then now, guys, I want to get through this so I can give you a lot of time for questions and answers. And the last situation you'll be doing when you play tennis is passing shots and lobs, right? So obviously the other person's at the net. This is my go-to game, Lobster Cup. You play to the deuce, then you switch and you play to the ad. The game is called Lobster Cup. So, let me go back to Lobster Cup. So it's very simple. I'll just play this for you. This is very similar to Cuban Davis Cup in that you're going to get hundreds and hundreds of overheads and volleys and stuff. So what happens here is my net player must start, and you'll see I call that zone one. Remember the zones. She has to start up in front here. She feeds the ball to Marty, and this player cannot retreat. Remember, this game is played cross court here until her feed bounces. So watch. She feeds the ball right here. She's going to feed, and she holds her ground. And right now she can release, and then there's an automatic lob. So the rule is you must lob the first ball, and then you duke it out cross court. Boom! Quickly go to the other side. So again, we're going quick. You feed it, she has to stay there. That person has to lob the first ball, and then anything else is live. Now they're going back and forth. So imagine you doing this game with a buddy, and this is the rule. You play cross court, you must lob the first. The timing here is important. Notice this feed. You have to start inside the halfway point. You have to stay there. Bam! When it lands, your feed lands on the other side, that's when you're allowed to release. I've tested this, and that makes it realistic. So if I have two adults play this game in about an hour's time, they're going to hit over 200 volleys and 200 reflex overhead dig outs. So again, all these games that I've been flirting with lately and inventing are all for this massive purpose of trying to give people a ton of touches on the ball. So now I did paste these two websites here in the comments, and I think if it's all right with you guys, Conrad, I'm going to just show people. If you go to capestanytennis.com, from there you can get to each of my websites. This is the player's website. It's totally free. There's probably 300 videos on there. This is the coach's website. And the reason I don't necessarily want you to go to this website just yet is because I have a special going on right now. And this is what it looks like. So actually, this is it. So there's a link here. I pasted in there. If you are, most of you are probably new subscribers, you can get access to that website right now. It has 2,000 tennis drills, tennis-related courses for parents teaching kids and strategy. I mean, it's robust, probably 4,000 videos when you put them all together. And you can enroll now for free. I'm trying to do this to help out coaches and players, mostly coaches, frankly, so they can get some education time and go in there and kick the tires. If by some miracle we do have your email on file, then you've already been turned on. You got access. So that's basically, we can go get a whole bunch of free stuff. I don't really have anything to sell to you, but I would definitely recommend JorgeCapestany.com and this site here. But go to this link, and I did post it. So let me stop sharing. And so there you go, guys. I did a ton of talking, and I see that people are already. Sorry, I should put my thing up there. So. Ari and Conrad, what do you guys think? Any questions on your end?
I mean, all those drills are obviously incredibly, useful. I'm sure everybody loved that. I guess the first question, there were two, which were pretty much the same one that came from the chat, which were, what's the best way to adjust, or what drills can you recommend for, at home or in the backyard, or, I guess some people can go to their local courts, but probably, most can't. But do you have any recommendations for what somebody can do, after they get off the chat? They want to go hit it, hit the ball,
yeah,
in their backyard with their dad.
Yep, I'm going to show you. I'm going to answer that the best possible way. I'm going to show you my screen again. So this is the website, JorgeCapestany.com. That's the one I said was totally free. And there's a couple things that you can do at home. I'm doing this with players right now. So there's really two big areas here. This one is the video lessons, right? So if you just click on serves, there's all these video lessons. There's dozens of them in here. And this is nothing else. This is not necessarily going to be on the court, but a little bit of what you saw is in here, but there's a whole lot more in here. So I would definitely say that getting on here, doing some online learning, these are all YouTube, they're free, they're high def. And that's just serve. We got return to serve. On the mental toughness, I noticed that was a question. This is where you want to go. Now, I'm a little embarrassed to show you this because I do have, this link is kind of broken, but it kind of works. It looks very ugly, but I have, if you put your email here, I do have a 4-part mental toughness series that comes to you over 8 days. Video 1 is fear of losing. Video 2 is how to close out a set. Video 3 is your inner voice, and video 4 is dealing with nerves and choking. And it's very productive. Each video is about 20 to 25 minutes. It's a total no-brainer to do. There's no credit card or anything collected. It's just a total free option. And then here's the other thing. If you go to the pro section, if you go to pro slow motion, this is really kind of nice. What we have in here is, I had a media pass to the Cincinnati Masters when they allowed us to do this, and they don't anymore. And basically, you can see all these pros. Here I got Federer. And I rented a special camera. It's 240 frames a second, and it keeps it at full high def. So if you watch this, talk about visualization. So right here, I can pause. I can look at all kinds of things, like where his hands are here. It's like super bright and shiny. I can go here. I can see all kinds of stuff. So that's also free, and you can see all kinds of really, I think, helpful things in there. And also in there, under there's pro practices and pro analysis. If you're kind of a technical person and you want to, like how to, here I go deeper and I take a dive into like comparing, like here I'm comparing Wawrinka and Dimitrov's backhand. If you like technical analysis, that would be a good place to go. Also on here, you can get some ideas like volleys. Sorry, I'm going to go here and call that net play. There's a little game called parking lot volleys. That's something you can do on your own. The things that we have going here, guys, and I'll be honest, there's two types of people in my life right now, student-wise. There's some who can or are willing to go out and play on an actual tennis court because in Michigan, technically you can. But even then, there's another equally as big group that are like, I ain't going out, man. I don't care if it's on the tennis court or not. So they have a little harder time. What can you do in your physical space? I think the use of foam balls are actually very, very helpful. I saw a pretty high performance kid with a foam ball getting an unbelievable workout hitting against his garage door. Now you couldn't really do that with an actual ball, I don't think. It would probably ruin the garage. But this guy was sweating and ripping balls and going, he's keeping his touches on the ball. Obviously it's a foam ball, and obviously, it's not how he's going to play a match. But it's way better than not doing anything. And I think that would be what I would do. I've actually assigned that very thing to a couple of people. There was a famous video I shared. It was actually super cute. There was two kids playing. I don't know if you saw it, Conrad. I shared it on social media. Two kids playing down in their basement, red ball tennis. Kids are probably 11 and 9. And Joe Buck, the famous announcer that calls the World Series and stuff, he is doing something from home now called Calls from Home with Joe Buck. And he gets a hold of that footage and he calls it. Joe Buck, the famous thing. And I shared it, and I didn't even realize that those two kids used to go to my club, the Hackney brothers. They moved away, but I didn't even know that until someone pointed that out. So they're ripping in the basement doing things like that. When it comes to the fitness part, I think, you can do a lot, I think, depending on how eager you are. I like to do tennis-specific stuff. So if you don't have a weight, you can take your tennis racket, your actual tennis racket. And we don't have the old-fashioned covers where you just cover the head, but if you take a grocery bag, one of those plastic ones, and just tie it over the head and cinch it, now that thing has resistance. And you'd be very surprised if you just kind of shadow, go through, basically choreograph a match where you serve and do 3 or 4 shots and take a break with the resistance. It's unbelievable. Then you take the bag off and your racket head, it feels like super light, and it's really helpful. So I'm kind of bouncing all over, but I just wanted to kind of show everybody exactly what some of those games are. As soon as you can get out, here's what I anticipate. I think probably we're all, like, if you're a club player, you're probably going to be able to start playing. The first thing you do is probably not going to be a group lesson. There's probably going to be some limitations on that. So it's very possible, likely, that you will probably be able to hit with a buddy before you can hit with a group class or with a coach. So those games that I showed you today were super, super helpful. I think those are the ones I would hit. I'm a real believer that when most players practice on their own, and I'm talking high-performance juniors, it's often, frankly, not that good. They're just kind of hitting. There's no purpose to it. There's no intention to, let's take this area of my game, the net play, and let's really ramp up the touches on the ball. So they kind of go out and, they put in an hour, they come off, and how'd it go? Well, so if you kind of do those games, just pick areas. I wouldn't, now obviously playing a set would be good, but if you play a set, you're actually, the ball's alive, 13 minutes during the hour. So there's a reason why the pros train, and you see them at the US Open and these tournaments, they're not always playing sets. They're training, they're getting, and they don't call 6 guys to train. It's Rafa working out with another dude, and they're doing these kinds of games. They're sparring, they're training, they're hitting, and they're getting a lot of balls, and they're doing it at high intensity.
Jorge, if I can just say a couple quick things. I got a note here sent to me from someone in China, which is really interesting. They're obviously watching, saying that the great thing about your session is that you're actually helping people solve many of their own problems without touching the ball. And so that basically highlights to me the methodology that's coming through video-based lessons is all about recognition. It's about the power of the visual tool, self-correction. You talked about the strike zones. You talked about the over and under volley exercise. Those type of things are very important, that to become aware of your own kinesthetic awareness, knowing where things are without having to actually stop and look. A lot of the time, juniors, as you highlighted, they don't get the time to do that because, they're training 2 hours plus 1 hour fitness. Let's say at Centercourt, it's what we do. They run on court and we're trying to get through as much as we can. The other thing that you highlighted too, which I loved, was the 5 modes of play, which is what we call it. Basically, the baseline mode being the most common, the serve and return mode being the least practiced, and then you've obviously got net to baseline, baseline to net, or passing shots. So those 5 modes, I feel like players could probably work on all of them in their own space if they have the space to be creative. So obviously, a wall is easy for ball and wall type activities, volleying. But another, I think, one of your drills on your website, I recall doing it many years ago. It was called serving. what's it called? Serving where you hit the target and the candy came out.
Oh, piñata.
Piñata, serving piñata. That's it. So my wife would kill me. She's Mexican. I forgot the name of the word. But that's something you can do at home. You know, you could measure out the length of the court. You could certainly put up a rope, put up some chairs. And it is important that you do go through those things. What are your thoughts on all those concepts?
Well, you actually reminded me of something. I just pulled something up I want to share with everybody. I'll share my screen here quickly. So I'm a huge believer in having a system. I worry that my industry coaching does a lot of Band-Aid coaching. In other words, where, hey, Jimmy, what do you want to work on? Well, I don't know, my backhand. Okay, and they do, but nothing's linked together. So if you can see my screen right now, this is what I call my player progress report. It's basically the 5-play situation. So my entire teaching system, the way I work with players, is based on these situations, okay? So you can see I have them listed here. I got serving, returning, baseline play, net play, and then passing shots. Those are the 5. And then I throw in here an important one, which is as a competitor. But now we can take a little dive here, right? So if you look at serving, I kind of forced myself, what do I, like for technical, what are my wish lists for my students? And for me, it's proper grips and stances and the use of the 9 checkpoints. And then tactical, I want them eventually to be able to change the speed, the height, and the location within the box. So I'm going to make this a little bigger because I can zoom in just on the serve, right? So to me, this is how someone should evaluate and basically build their entire game. And then over here on this side, we have the return. And again, tactical. So one thing I would challenge people watching right now is you could probably just use this system right here, right? And kind of take an audit, okay? So I'm going to center this up. So if you take these 5 things and say, okay, in the last 6 months, if I'm really being honest with myself, what of these 5 areas are the ones that I need the most work on? What's causing me matches? When I lose, which one is it? Is it because of my return? Is it because of my baseline? Is it because of the competitor, because I'm nervous? You know, it's all right here for you. And then once you can identify that with either yourself and the help of a coach, now you have a roadmap, right? Now the coach can say, listen, for the next 4 or 5 months, we got to get after your serve. We can't be dinking around here in 6 months from now having the same problem, a year from now having the same problem, or worse yet, 2 years now. Yeah, 2 years later, the guy still has a crappy serve. So this is super important. And I can't tell you how many, unfortunately, times I don't see this happen very well. But I wanted to put it on the screen because I think it's an efficient, little, easy way to kind of think of your game. And basically, I turn this into a report card, okay? So if I don't do a lot of privates anymore. I'm more managing my club. But when I did, I always had one of these for a player, and I knew, okay, for this fall, we're working on your net skill and your passing shots. And maybe for the other kid, we're working on the serving and his baseline. It's really totally customizable to the player. But if you look at that, you'd probably realize there's players that if they're really being honest, they would say, wow, this net area, I literally have been ignoring it. I haven't done anything to train in the net area. I don't like the net. I'm a good baseliner. And they're ignoring it. It doesn't have to be your best, area of your game, but you can't ignore things. That's where people get screwed up. So I think I call it a progress report, but this has been really helpful to me. And when I show this to other clubs and to other coaches, they're like, man, I want to spike that. So I'll email it to you if you want, Conrad. It's very helpful. And it gets me, the parent, the kid, all on the same page. So there's no heartache later. Like, well, I thought he was doing this. Well, I didn't think he was training that. So that's the progress report. And I think that's probably how you explain it. I'll give you this idea of tennis IQ. I started tennis late. I didn't even pick up a racket until I was 14. I started when I was 15 in high school, or almost 15. So consequently, I played a lot. So my game went up fast, but my belief went up slow. So I remember the very first tournament I played a guy named Brian, and he happened to be the #1 seed, and I lost 6-0, 6-0, first tournament out of the gate. And I'm like, oh, so I thought Brian was like a professional. He was just a good local player. But in my mind, he was like the man. He was the #1 seed in this tournament. All right, so I played a ton of tennis because I got hooked. And probably about a year later, my game had caught up to his. I was probably game to game about as good as he was. But I played him about a year later, and he still beat me 2-2 because my brain was still telling me, I can't beat that guy. That's Brian. Okay, so I actually had to pass him by a fair amount ability to actually beat him. So I think that happens in our sport, and I don't think people. My big mission, if I had to put it in a sentence, is trying to get people playing our sport to understand tennis IQ. I think our sport is full with an army of players that just are. They're winning the race to the wrong finish line. They're chasing pretty strokes, and pretty strokes don't win. If that's the case, we all wouldn't lose to people with crappy strokes. But I think tennis IQ, if you could think of it 3 ways. The first level of tennis IQ is for beginners. If I'm working with a beginner, it's basically them and the ball. That's it. They're like, how do I hold this? How do I swing? How do I set up and get in position to receive the ball? That's all they can do. Most people on this call are probably past that. Now you're into like the intermediate level, and that's tennis IQ level 2, which is you're really good at making decisions about your own side of the court. So you recognize when the ball is in strike zone 2 is different than was in strike zone 4. You recognize that this is way different than that. You recognize that if you're moving forward, it's different than if you're moving back. And you use all these drills. I just showed you a few of them, but I have a lot more that are basically to get your brain wrapped around making good decisions on your side. And then level 3 is basically we repurpose those same games, but we do it for the other side. So if I'm playing you, Conrad, and we're doing strike zone coding where I'm yelling out 4 and 3, then the last part is I do it, but now I yell out what you hit. So I'll hit a ball towards you, and then I have to notice the other side. And that's just tricks on how I can get my brain to think about the other side. So my message would be get off the addiction to perfect strokes, okay? The only thing that really is worth measuring a shot by is it's the effect on the opponent. It's not whether you got a lot of endorphins because you hit it solid. It's just what effect did it have. I think this happens at the pro level, but it goes over people's head. Rafa, his game by nature is super disruptive. He's got balls bouncing up on people. It's very, very disruptive. And people, they think, oh, he hits hard. And they don't recognize that he routinely puts people in these difficult positions. He hits it really high. He gets them backing up. He gets them hitting out of these weak strike zones. That's not an accident. That he's doing that on purpose. But people look right past that and they go, oh my gosh, did you see that third shot where he just killed it? So I think level 3 of tennis IQ, bringing your attention to the other side. I like to say that I'm the second most important person on the court, and the first most important person is my opponent. I got to figure that guy out. It's not about me. It's about that side, and having the ability to even be aware of, and secondly, do something about it. If I play Conrad, I have to play a certain way. So that's kind of my story.
So, if I can jump on that topic again, and guys, we're open for questions now. If you'd like to ask anything. I love what you just touched on, because the other day with Dr. Anthony Ross in the mental toughness webinar we did, we talked about a little bit about plateau. And my belief is a lot of juniors hit that plateau because they are so hell-bent on themselves, on how do I feel, on how does my stroke look, on, the coach is telling me to get a little bit more left hip into the court. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So the effectiveness doesn't happen. Tennis IQ, for me, along with footwork, are the 2 easiest ways to immediately become a better tennis player. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree, because you don't have to, it's not reliant, right? I can become smarter. Obviously, I have a lot of videos, so I believe in online, learning. I was just telling Ari and Conrad before we were trying to figure out something on Conrad's phone. I go, if I don't know how to do something, like if I don't know how to turn off notifications on my phone, I immediately go to YouTube and I go, how do you turn off notifications? And I'll watch a video and I'll do it in 2 seconds. That's kind of how I like to do it. But the fact is you can do those things without another person, okay? And here's the other thing. When you get smart, when you improve your tennis IQ, that never goes away. It's not like if you get older, if you're 21 years old and you're in peak prime, you get faster. Well, guess what? As you get older, that goes down. You're not going to be as fast when you're 51 or 61 or 71, right? So all these other skills that you might want, kind of father time can erode them, but not your tennis IQ. Your brain stuff can get better and better and better. I think it's almost the reverse. Most juniors have great physicality and they're really light and move well, and they don't have quite the mature brain. They don't have the best tennis IQ. And then you put a junior with a 35-year-old ex-pro that probably is a little more, physically challenged. It doesn't run like he used to. But that brain power can beat the junior who has a better stroke. If you watch them spar back and forth, you would say, oh, wow, this junior is going to kill that guy. Then the old guy wins. Happens all the time. So I think that's really cool. I think these games are all, you can do them like basically like playing checkers, just kind of low level, or you can do them playing chess where you're really into it and you're trying to get the touches on the ball and you're trying to get the purpose of the drill. And if you just did if you just did the depth coding drill and the strike zone coding drill alone, you'll be shocked at what you see and how helpful that can be. And if you do, especially if you do it for your side and then just do them again for the other side, super easy stuff to do. And you'll be surprised. You'll learn stuff and then you can, start running plays, if you will.
Jorge, we have two of the same question from Keith and I think there was somebody else, but they wanted to know how they can access the player progress report. If it's something they can download, is it something they can just print out?
Yeah, so let me, what I'll do, it could be on one of my sites, but what I'll do is, how about if I email it to you and then you can
send it to me and I can send it over to everybody. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I
have another Ari, it might be the ideal time just for everyone to realize Jorge has a special arrangement going on at the moment. Obviously the tennis world is hurting. And, a lot of people are at home trying to wonder how do we get better or how can we upgrade our skill set. Jorge, you want to tell us a little bit about your 3-week, which is probably down to 2 weeks now?
Well, I just shared it on my screen again. So what I had showed you before, this is the Tennis Drills website, but if you go to it, don't go directly to Tennis Drills, because what's going to happen is you're going to get our normal thing where this is like you can try it for $1, right? But right now I have this going on, and I did post this in the comment section, this link. So if you go here now, and the deadline was today, but just this afternoon, I decided to extend the deadline to this coming Friday. So you can go there and enroll, and then that will give you full access to tennisdrills.tv. And in case you're wondering what that's all about, I'll just show you why you might want to do that. I have drills here. If you look at the singles drills, just as an example, just in the singles drills category. So if you're a coach, this is for sure a no-brainer. I'm going to scroll down really fast here. I'm going to do this. You can see we have singles drills, 265 of them, and you can watch any one of them. And you can watch them full screen, small screen. There'll be a lot of ideas for you. Now, there's all these drills, right? If you are a coach, you can go in the lab. And now we're past drills, we're moving into courses. But I want to show something, especially if you are a parent. So in here, there'll be all kinds of courses, and even some of them for USPTA and PTR credit. But there's a course here that I'm fired up about. This course, Conrad, this is how I onboard parents, about what the USPTA is and all that stuff. But if you check this one here, if you're a parent and you have younger kids and you're teaching them tennis, this is a must-watch course. So what I did is I did it by grades, K1, that's basically 5 and 6-year-olds, and I do an athletic, all these things for each one. Then I do it for a little bit older, and then I do it for a little bit older. Always the same things. So as an example, this is the actual video of me with an actual little 5 and 6-year-old. I will mute that. And you'll get ideas of what I do with him to get him going. And this, I've had some parents start doing this with their kids, and it's shockingly helpful. These kids are coming to our Rogi classes, and they're like miles ahead. But if you're a player, this is probably where you're going to want to go. This is the most player-centric part of the website. Singles, Moonballer, you go here. And it tells you all these different ways to beat the moonballer. And then there's a video of me teaching you how to do it. So it's how to beat the steady baseliner, the runner pusher, the aggressive baseliner, all these things. And then there's a section here. And I just realized something I probably should tell you about. I think you know about my website. I have this little strategy book that I wrote, and it really became popular. Of course, I messed that up. But strategybooklet.com is it's basically a book version of, and this is what it looks like right here. And it's just a book that you keep in your, I'll stick this in the comments as well. But that's a really friendly book. You can buy it for 14 bucks, and you keep it in your bag, and then you look it up and you see who you're playing. Today I'm playing an aggressive baseliner. There's quick 6 or 7 things you can try. So for our sport where it doesn't have coaching, strategybooklet.com, that thing has sold over 20,000 copies, believe it or not. So it's really helpful. And here, I'll just put the URL.
Jorge, if I can ask you one question, one of our superstar high performance coaches, Terry Duran, absolute inspirational coach. He has led a lot of our good juniors through to high performance. He's asked a question that's basically saying, how would you deal with those perfectionist juniors that struggle to let go of a previous era when they're playing in competitive matches?
Yeah, I can tell you, this is not personal to me, but it's my go-to thing when I have a perfectionist. So if any coaches watching, you know, tennis tends to draw, in my opinion, a lot of high IQ kids, you know, really smart kids. A lot of them are 4.0 students. Shockingly, if you ask your classes how many have 4.0s, a lot of them do. So they're used to, they have this feeling like, if I work hard at school, I can pretty much guarantee an A. But this is a sport, and it's a different piece of life. And you can work really hard in tennis, and it does not guarantee a win. So here's the thing. The way I deal with a perfectionist is I have this little system. I will watch, usually I'll take them and I'll watch a few minutes, like I'm saying 5 to 10 minutes of a match, of a pro match, okay? And I'll tell them what I'm about to say. Hey, I want to talk to you. I know you're getting super frustrated with yourself. I want to go through an experiment. Would you meet with me for 15 minutes? Okay, coach, I will. I go, and I bring them into my office or wherever, and we watch whoever, Rafa versus Fed, any pro match on the internet. And I go, let's kind of count just unforced errors or just missed shots. And in 10 minutes, 15 max, there's going to be a few, okay? They're really good people, so there's not going to be 20, but there's going to be 5 to 7 unforced errors in that time. And then I say, okay, so what'd you come up with? And I go, yeah, we each came up, there was between, you know, Federer there in that last, 5 games, he had 7 unforced errors, as an example. And then I asked him this question, which kind of, I go, so Fed, just had 7. So in one set, if Fed had 7 in a set, let's say, how many would be acceptable unforced errors for you? And I asked that, and a little smoke comes out of their ears because they so desperately want to say 0, right? Because I shouldn't make any. But I'm saying the best players in the world. So our game is a game of errors, unfortunately. If you listen to Craig, which I know you guys have, there's way more errors to deal with than winners. So rather than taking your winner pile and trying to increase the amount of winners, it's easier to take your giant error pile and shrink them. But I actually try to get, when I have a perfectionist, try to get them to verbally commit to a number. How many unforced errors are acceptable per set for you before you freak out? Because they usually don't do that. So they operate with the number in their head of 0, like any error. If I miss, they freak out. So if you just kind of say, right, this is a little unreasonable. We just watched the best players ever, and they have unforced errors, and you're holding yourself to a higher standard, of course you're going to be miserable. So and often that conversation will go like this. I'll say, okay, so, all right, whatever, Jennifer, how many do you think? And she'll go, I think it should be 0. I go, okay, that's being a little crazy because we just saw the best players and you're not as good as them. So let's rethink that. So as soon as I can get them to admit a number, I don't care what the number is, that's a win for me, because now they're starting to realize, like, okay, maybe it's not that if their goal is 0, which I think in their heart it is, because they're perfectionists, they're pretty much going to be a miserable person, because it's nearly impossible to operate like that. So that's my go-to strategy. I've tried talking and stuff, but this little exercise of watching someone they know and respect on TV, someone famous, and realizing that they have errors and then applying it back to them has been the most helpful thing for me to help with perfectionists.
All right, Terry liked that one. Hopefully that helped you out, Terry, and all the coaches out there. Before we wrap things up, I'm sure, I mean, we'd love to invite Jorge back to go over some more drills and to share more information.
Yeah, we'll never know how long this series is going to go, right? You're hoping this series can up and roll back in the court in a month, but we'll see.
I mean, we're hoping, we're hoping you get some live drills with the kids over the summer. You know, maybe come to Chatham or visit our club. But we are going to continue our webinar series. I wanted to obviously thank Jorge and Conrad for joining us, and thank everybody who listened in, who's been listening in. It's been awesome for us to get in front of you guys. This webinar is part of our Centercourt 360 webinar series, actually, which is a new initiative that we've actually started in the past couple of weeks. The initiative is called Centercourt 360. It develops and supports the high school student community with our structured program led by outstanding staff made up of faculty from well-regarded schools as well as certified trainers. It's an exciting initiative. The mission of Centercourt 360 is to develop the whole student with academic and athletic support to promote leadership, mindfulness, healthy lifestyle choices, camaraderie, and confidence, as long as exposure to career education, technology, and wellness curriculums. We do have a series of speakers actually this week. These are all free classes that we're offering now, as well as one-on-one tutors with our professors, educators, and business leaders. We have Alma Lopez Holder, who is a Del Barton Spanish teacher. Her class passed. My apologies to that. We have Dr. Nick Molinero, who is a licensed psychologist who is running a class tomorrow at 5:30. And we have Rob Flynn, who's the Del Barton Tech Integration Specialist and our football coach, who's running a class on making social media work for the student. It'll be Thursday, April 2nd at 7:30. All this information we're going to send to all of you. We want to keep you guys involved, and we want to hear from you as well. Conrad is going to go over a couple of future webinars that are part of the tennis series specific, and then we'll wrap things up. Thanks so much.
Guys, I just wanted to say, I did just put an extra link in there. Someone asked me, one of the things I do besides the other stuff is I'm at Hope College, and we have a professional tennis management program, they call that PTM, where kids can actually go to a college, pick whatever degree they want, and then study tennis, so they become a certified teaching pro like myself and the others.
Yeah.
So I put the link in there. It's a really, really clever and awesome program, and ours is we own a club and we have members, so all our kids are very much immersive. So that's what that link is I just put in there.
Jorge, thanks a lot, mate. I cannot begin to tell you how appreciative we are in these difficult times where everyone feels, we're not hitting balls. But I really feel like it's an opportunity actually to get better in all those other areas that you mentioned.
Yeah.
This Thursday, guys, we're really excited. We have world-famous footwork specialist coach from Australia. His name is Dave Bailey. Very good friend of mine, and just an unbelievably good footwork expert. Please tune in this Thursday.
He's solid. I've seen his stuff.
4 p.m. As well as that, again, we're trying to connect and keep all the kids engaged as much as we can. We have the 28-day mental challenge with Dr. Anthony Ross. If you'd like more information about that and you'd like to get involved, please let us know. We'll certainly be happy to get you connected there. Just one more time, we're doing a video challenge where anyone that's got cool videos, that you're training at home, you want to let us know what you're up to, please post them and tag us at Centercourt Performance Tennis Academy. And just finally, Jorge, thanks a lot, mate. We really appreciate your contribution.
Thank you, guys, man.
Jorge, what's the best way to contact you for everybody that's interested in getting more information? Email, phone? Best way.
Yeah, I'll put it in the thing, info@tennisdrills.tv. Let me just make sure I got that right. Yeah, I just typed it in the thing. My email is, best one is